Well, hello, sunshine. Jared and I are so thrilled to have you join us today. We have something very special for you. We are being joined by our friend, Clean Food Mama, Stephanie Collazo. I cannot wait for you to hear Stephanie's story. She's such an amazing woman. She has lost over 165 pounds eating whole food plant based naturally and enjoyably. Also, her husband, her two teenage sons, and her mother have even been influenced by the lifestyle changes that she's decided to make. I cannot wait for you to hear her story. I'm so happy to have you here with us today, Stephanie. Welcome to the Power on Plants podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. So excited to finally meet you guys virtually, right? It's awesome.
Yes, I know, right? We've had conversations on the phone. I've heard all about your incredible journey. I am so glad that we've gotten to be friends because
Yes.
we have a lot in common. I think when you can meet with the plant based agenda and you're talking about all of the ways it's changed your life, it can just make such a huge difference in your life. And you have so many things in common. So, tell us, I would love to hear about your amazing journey. You've had an incredible weight loss journey. And today I want you to also share a little bit about your husband's journey and your family, your children, and your mom a little bit too, because I want people to understand, Jared and I want people to wrap their mind around the fact that these chronic diseases that we've come to believe are lifestyle related, just many times don't have to be. So, could you tell us a little bit about your whole food plant based journey and
Yeah.
how it all started?
Yeah. My plant-based journey actually started in 2020. It was about 4 months after my husband was diagnosed with diabetes.
Hmm.
And we were sitting at his doctor appointment. And the doctor said, I can reverse your diabetes and I can help you lose the weight you need to. And I
So
said, "What?"
did you seek out a plant-based doctor then?
No, no, no. My husband is actually a veteran, and it was just at the VA. It was an actual doctor at the VA who was slightly I think he was a nutritionist at the same time. Wonderful man. I wish I could find him again because he has left that area. But yeah,
Right.
it was amazing. And he said, I can help you go plant based. Plant based is going to be the key to helping reverse. And so it was about, we're a huge meat eating family and meats, potatoes, all that. And so it took about 4 months and the pandemic happened and we were out of groceries and we decided, well, it's time we're ordering everything online. Everybody was doing the Instacart thing. And so we decided, I said, well, we're out of everything. Let's just order the vegetables that he's been talking about. Let's order all the plant foods he's been talking about.
Mhm.
And so I did that. I ordered it and we started May 12th, 2020 was our plant-based day. And it's always going to be an anniversary for us. So that was an amazing day for us.
That is incredible. Okay, so first of all, it's amazing that you found a doctor that recommended plant-based, but you hadn't even searched one out.
Yeah.
So there are people out there who know these things. And I seem to recall you telling me he had seen that in research.
Yeah, he was actually, I think he was kind of doing a pilot program at this
Mhm.
certain VA. We're out of the Portland area.
Right.
And so he was doing a pilot program. And so I think Nelson was one of his first ones
Okay.
to kind of do
Nice.
that. And I think he kind of went around the country was the thing he did
Mhm.
and went to different VAs. And yeah, it was just amazing. He was actually his primary care at the time. So
Okay.
yeah, he was just there to support us and show us the way. And it was amazing. And back in July, Nelson retested and he was actually completely had reversed his diabetes within just a couple of months. So it was amazing
Wow.
for him.
So he
So
had type 2
yeah.
diabetes and he completely reversed it in, was it 8 weeks?
Probably, yeah. He was put on the medication
Right.
for a few
Yeah.
months, and then he actually went off of that because at that time, because everything was happening with the pandemic and getting the prescription and stuff. And the doctor had, let's go in and retest you, which was
Mhm.
6 months from the last time he was retested, but about 3 months from the time we had gone plant based. And yeah, everything
Wow.
was normal. And he's like, you guys did. I said, no, you helped us. He's like, no, you guys did it. And I said, without your help, it probably wouldn't have been the success we were there. So yeah.
Now,
But you definitely did the work. That's
now, do
amazing.
you remember what his hemoglobin A1C was
Yeah.
right at when you started? What was the number?
9.2.
Okay, and that's pretty
That's
high because
Yeah.
anything above 5.7 is
Yeah.
considered pre-diabetes and then into diabetes. So that's pretty high.
Yeah.
Then once you were declared or he was declared diabetes free, what was the A1C? Do you remember?
5.2.
Okay, that's amazing. That's
it's
absolutely
amazing.
amazing.
And we
Yeah.
continue to stay down there. I mean, he continues to stay down there, which is even amazing, more
And
amazing.
how long has it been now? It's been
It's been almost
3
3 years since we
years?
went plant based. Yeah. So
Okay. Oh,
yeah,
that's incredible.
yeah,
So it changed his life.
Yeah.
So, what was happening for you at that time as well? I want to go back. Maybe we should go back and start before that on your
Yeah.
weight loss journey
Yeah.
and your healing journey as well. Let's talk about um, just your background.
Yeah.
Like, what had happened with you? What were the health things that you were hoping to change? I know weight loss was one of the
Yeah.
things, but I don't think that was always your main
That was
focus.
never
So,
it was never the main goal. It was always a goal
mhm,
that kept me, I felt, back from what I wanted to do.
mhm.
But I think it was always, I always call it the wonderful byproduct of changing your lifestyle.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
and so that was
absolutely.
it. Back in 2013, I was actually diagnosed with sleep apnea.
Okay.
And our family had a couple other health issues going on. My son was diagnosed with epilepsy at that time.
Oh,
And so we
wow.
just needed to make a change. And
Okay.
back then, of course, I didn't know anything about plant based. I started researching. Her name was Nutrition by Natalie, and found these videos. It was amazing, just the difference that she told us about whole foods, about
Hmm.
real foods. And so I started learning. And as a family, we kind of all take everything on board together. Figure it's the best way to do to support each other. And I said to my family, I said, we've got to try this. We've got to try just eating, clean eating at that time.
So were the kids on board too?
Yeah, yeah. So
I
the
mean,
kids were on board.
okay,
The kids have
good.
always got on board because mom's the cook usually. Dad does some of the cooking, but yeah, it's doing that way. So the kids, everybody's on board, and they
Good.
still at that time, we still got what I look now is the same kind of foods we were eating. We were just watching more whole foods,
Hmm.
more clean foods. At least I thought back
Hmm.
then.
Can you
And
explain a little bit more of clean eating for our listeners?
yeah,
Because how is that different? What you were doing back then, how is it different compared to what you're doing today with
oh,
whole food
absolutely.
plant based?
Yeah, so we still switched everything over to brown rice,
Right.
like a brown pasta,
Hmm.
and took out the white
Okay.
products in our home.
Okay.
And then we ate the meat, we still have the
Hmm.
cheese. Although,
Right.
so yeah, so everything's a difference. So the transition was a lot easier for us because we were already doing the brown rice and all that, but we
Right.
were still eating the meat, still eating the dairy and the eggs, absolutely. And bacon
Now,
was a huge one. Yeah, higher
now
fat foods.
were you still trying to go at that point, maybe like organic or
Yes,
the no
absolutely.
hormone?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
We
did a
understand
lot of that.
completely.
Yeah, we did a
Actually, it was
lot of
around the
that.
same time. It's
Hmm.
amazing the parallels.
Hmm.
But it's
Absolutely.
interesting. 2013 seemed to be a big year because everybody I find that is the year that they all switched their lifestyle. And it's
Hmm.
interesting when I look back at everybody's journey, they're like, I started in 2013. I'm like, what, excuse me, what was it
Wow.
with that year?
Yeah, there was a lot going on back then,
Yeah.
apparently. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were eating clean. We
Yeah.
described what that is. So tell us what started happening as you started changing and adjusting your lifestyle to the clean eating lifestyle.
Yeah. So it took about 2 years. And then obviously the weight came off because there was a change in our diet.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it happened in 2015. I was down 140 pounds, which was amazing for me, feeling
Wow.
great
Wow.
and loving it. My husband and I were both actually in graduate school,
Hmm.
and we were getting ready to finish our thesis. And stress, homeschooling mom here, and
Oh
just like
yeah.
you guys, stress, school, thesis, and trying to figure it all out.
That's a
The
lot.
habits started
That
creeping
is a
back.
lot.
Yeah,
Hmm.
the habits
Wow.
started creeping back. And I
Okay.
think by the time we graduated in May of 2016, I was up about 20 pounds, and then it just started back up. I had not really learned the things that were keeping me. So the food was a good change, but I had a lot of
Right.
things I needed to deal with to
Hmm.
be able to keep the weight off and make this a sustainable lifestyle. I thought at that time back in 2013 this was going to be a sustainable life.
Right.
It wasn't so much. And by
The
2000,
clean eating and what
cleaning,
you were doing
exactly.
then.
Yeah, not
Right.
plant-based. Absolutely. Plant-based, totally
Okay.
opposite.
So were you still
And
eating the same foods that you had lost the weight on, but maybe in different proportions?
yeah, and I think more of eating food. Yeah, I
Or
felt like I
going
was,
back to what you were doing before?
yeah, not completely because we've always now kept the brown rices and the brown
Hmm.
pasta. So we never went back to the refined foods.
Okay.
Right.
But I think the cakes, I had a sweet tooth. So the
Hmm.
cakes, I would consider they were clean. And maybe I was just confusing myself or kidding myself. I'm not too sure.
Hmm.
And so the weight crept back on. By 2019, I was back up to the same weight I was when I had started in 2013.
Oh, okay.
And it was almost like a stopping point. Like, I can't
Hmm.
go above this number. I can't do this because then I don't know if I could ever stop. And again,
Right.
it was dealing with the things. So the food was great because I learned so much. but it obviously was not the answer for me to do this as a sustainable life. And that
Mhm.
is what I wanted to be for myself and for my family.
Right. So what happened from that point moving forward?
So the weight, when I got to that weight, I said we
Mhm.
stop and went back in 2019. It was about a month after my husband's 50th birthday.
Okay.
And I decided we got to go back to this clean eating more, not necessarily strict, but more paying attention, being more intentional with
Yes.
our foods.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so then that was about a year before, and then the weight started coming off. I lost about 60 pounds doing that again.
Okay.
Again, I never felt like I was on a diet because it was just, but it obviously was at that time because it wasn't working long term.
Right. Yeah, dieting is so different, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just a different concept, it's a different mindset than learning how to live a different
Yeah.
lifestyle
Yeah.
and finding that lifestyle that you enjoy that actually works for you and your
Yeah.
family. And I think that's so very
It is.
important.
Yeah. And then in
Did you
2020, when we went plant based,
Mm,
obviously then that was like it, more weight came off, which was awesome. But the fact is what I had started years ago, I actually started a private little group for just sharing the foods that we were making in our own home because I
mhm.
actually was never a cook. Actually, I told you on the phone, I could burn
Yeah.
water.
Yes, you'd shared that with
Yeah,
me.
I used
Wow.
years ago. So I think that clean eating got me in the kitchen. It got
Mhm.
me to eating and cooking for my family because that was one of the key was getting in the kitchen, making sure that we're eating foods that we're making ourselves, that we can
Yes,
control the ingredients, we can control what was going in them, and then we could do a lot of reading of labels was key for us back then.
So
absolutely.
before that point, what were you doing? If you weren't cooking, was it more just prepackaged meals you were
Yeah,
heating up?
yeah,
Okay.
eating out a lot. Not necessarily watching what we were eating. If we were, I guess I never, it was almost like a switch of the mind to understanding that we were even not eating foods that were good for us. My children
Right.
had, we already kind of had done organic before. Just a little bit of a paranoid mom here, kind of worried a little bit about things when the kids are younger.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, the kids, they had organic milk, but it might be organic full fat milk when they were younger. They never
Right.
really got into cereals when they were younger. So it would be more granola or something. So there were some things that we were doing a little different, but definitely it wasn't because everybody was dealing with weight issues.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't,
Absolutely.
whatever we were doing was not working health wise.
Okay. Okay. So once you started whole food plant based
Yeah.
and you started getting these changes, in the very beginning, what did you find the most challenging? Because I know sometimes you start something and you think, wait, I'm not sure what to do. I think for us, it was kind of like, I'm not really sure what to do first,
Yeah.
what to add in, what will be the easiest thing to do. Sometimes it's just the shopping. Where
Yeah.
do I shop? What were some of your challenges back then?
Yeah, the biggest challenge probably is getting the foods that my family enjoyed and learning how to make them
Yes.
Okay.
plant-based.
Yes.
Because I
And
I knew, and I'm a all or nothing kind of person.
Mhm.
It doesn't work for everybody, but I knew I kind of had to slowly transition them, but also knew we
Mhm.
needed to I know my family good enough to know that if we don't make the change, we'll just keep dragging it on.
Right.
So I knew that we kind of had to do something. So I figured starting with foods that would be for the kids. But the challenge was is I didn't know, excuse me, really how to cook plant-based. That was something different. We had first
Mhm.
started, yes, we did have oils in the very beginning, but that only lasted about 2 weeks. So
Right.
learning how to cook without oils, that was a challenge. My husband is from Puerto Rico, so beans and rice were a huge staple in his family. So that was
Mhm.
easy. That was an easy one to
Yes.
add. But yeah, just kind of finding the foods and then knowing that we were kind of the only ones doing this around us was probably what was the biggest challenge. But the good news was we were all kind of stuck at home. So we could kind of
Right.
focus on what we were eating at that time.
Yeah, having support, don't you think is
Yeah.
just so
It is.
key? You've got to be in community and have that support. And thankfully, you had that at home.
Yeah.
That's not always the case, but
That's
that's
true.
awesome that you had that at
Yeah.
home to keep you going and learning new things as you went.
Yeah.
What surprised you the most when you first started the plant based journey? Do you
Yeah.
remember feeling surprised about something on the way as you got started?
The fact is that I learned to cook more because it
Hmm.
almost was easier for me to go plant-based and learn how to cook. I started enjoying the foods and
Right.
I was surprised that I could actually cook plant-based. And these are, I consider they're the food that I have shared with for people for the last couple of years now that are just meals that when we have people over here now, they're like, oh my gosh, that's actually good. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's easy
Right.
to make.
We have that so many times. People
Yeah,
are
I'm
just shocked.
laughing.
This
Yeah.
actually tastes good. We have one friend of our children. She's little, a little girl, and she looked back at me one time. She was running up the stairs. She was at the house, and I just made cookies for him. And she had grabbed one, and she looks back with the cookie, and it's got a bite out of it. And she says, "Miss Anita, these taste like real cookies."
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
said, "Hannah, they are real cookies." "Oh, do you mean like you would get at a deli or something, or like out of a
Store-bought
package,
Yeah.
cookie.
store-bought cookies?" She said, "Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. They do." And that's one of our big goals, because I feel like when the food tastes good and when
Yeah.
you enjoy it, you don't miss the old things. You've
Yeah.
got to have those replacements and those things that you love just as much or even
Absolutely.
more as your old favorites. I
Yeah.
want to talk more about the foods,
Yeah.
but I'd like to go back a little bit and talk a little bit about your mom,
Yeah.
because you were telling me about her. And I think it's just such a sweet story about how you all are living right now and how you eat has affected her as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we, until May in 2020 is when we switched to plant-based. And in September of 2020, actually it was a little bit before that, we all kind of decided to sell our homes. And mom sold her home, we sold our home, and we decided to become a multi-generational family, move ourselves out to the country,
I
about an
love
hour
that.
away from the big city we were living in.
Hmm.
And at that time, obviously our whole family had been doing plant-based for a little bit, and my mom was not. And so it took about 2 weeks, and she's like, well, I want to kind of eat like you guys are. And I'm like, okay. So you can,
Oh.
because she was eating her own dinner and her own lunch and stuff. And so I just started cooking, and she started like, this is actually good. And she's on, obviously, September 2020 has been purely plant-based since then. So she had, was on blood pressure medicine.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
so her doctor actually had to take her off of it because it was going so low between that
That's
and the plant-based.
awesome.
Yeah. So that was
Yeah.
awesome. Lost, I think, 35 to 40 pounds. So that was amazing. She wanted to. She had not gained a lot of weight, but it wasn't comfortable for her. So she wanted
Right.
to be
Yeah.
where she was. She was able to retire, and so we just kind of enjoy life here and have a little tiny farm growing to have some companion animals and just love on all our animals and
I
just be able
love
to grow our
that.
own food. And yeah, excited to be able to do that.
I
Now, did
love
did
that.
you notice a difference in her though? I mean, beyond just the
Yeah.
way. I mean, does it feel
Mhm.
like her energy,
Yes.
the vitality, the almost the spark in her face? I mean, we've
Yeah.
noticed that with people that there's just a joy. I don't know how to describe
Different
it.
countenance,
Well, and I
Exactly.
really.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is at her work, she was an executive at her job, and even
Mhm.
though she didn't have to walk far, she would tell me she would get winded just getting out of the car and going to her office. And
Right.
then she's like, now she's walking up and down the barn, doing, chores and everything. She's like, it's amazing to be able to just have that where just getting exhausted getting out of your car. So I think those are the gifts that I think she feels that she was received through doing plant-based. And
So
Yeah.
so
It's
does
changed her life.
so
It's
does
really
she feel
changed her
like?
life.
Oops, sorry.
Go
So
ahead.
does she feel like she's just not held back by her body anymore?
yeah,
Then, so
exactly.
if
Yeah.
she wants to do
Yeah.
something, she does it.
Yeah. And she does more than I do sometimes. And she said, "We want-" yeah. So sometimes she'll even do more than I
Oh,
do.
that's
So it's awesome.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that. So the whole family has now
Yes.
embraced it for the most part,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so, what are some of the first meals that you started eating when you started this lifestyle and you weren't sure exactly what to do?
Yeah.
What were some of the first things that you started doing that you really enjoyed?
Yeah. So I love any Mexican inspired dish. So that's usually going to be the first. So I remember making a very large plate of nachos using corn
Yes.
tortillas and cutting
Hmm.
them up and putting them just right into the oven, baking
Hmm.
them, layering it with portobello mushrooms. I remember that. And then
Yum.
the cheese sauce that I finally learned how to make using potatoes and carrots, little nutritional yeast,
Yes.
onion powder, all
Hmm.
that kind of stuff that was delicious. And then made our own homemade guacamole at that
Right.
time and our own homemade pico de gallo and add a little bit of olives and stuff. And that I remember that being our first dish.
Good.
You loaded it up. And
Yeah.
that's such a great dish because you can make that however you want it. You can put any toppings you like. Like
Yeah.
if somebody liked tomatoes or they thought, I heard Stephanie say that, but I really don't like olives.
Right.
I don't want people sometimes will stop and not make something because of one or two ingredients.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can just switch it up. That's such an easy and wonderful dish. And you just took, were they oil free corn tortillas?
Yeah, I'm very specific on. I even before that we were eating just it had to be either corn, or maybe a little salt
Right.
and lime is pretty much what I
Right.
always do. There's a couple of local
Hmm.
companies that do it. Yeah, absolutely. That was something we were doing before, just because I was pretty specific on how the ingredients.
Hmm.
And the wonderful thing about it is my children are now 16 and 19. I shouldn't say one's not a child anymore, but
Right.
um, my children. But is my 16-year-old loves to read ingredients labels. And so that was a
Oh,
huge
wow.
thing. So plant-based changed a little bit to where we're,
Mhm.
most of our food don't have labels, but there's still maybe a canned tomato or something that might.
Right.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so it's great that he was able to start reading that. He's like, so he's a big time. He'll if he's out there looking, he knows he looks for vegan, right? Because plant
Right.
based isn't always on everything. And so he looks at it and says, "Well, Mom, this is vegan." And he'll look at the ingredients, and I'll say, because sometimes I won't have my glasses with me, and I'll say, I can't read them, honey." And he's like, "Yeah, it doesn't have that." I'm like, I love that he does that.
That is such a blessing to have a child who does that. That is awesome, and he's learned that by modeling, by watching you model,
Yeah,
and I've heard you talk about how that was such an important
yeah,
driving force in you starting whole food plant-based, because as parents, we want the best for our children.
yeah.
We always talk about how, I want our ceiling to be their floor, like
Oh,
their
I love that.
starting point, like our
Yeah,
highest point to be their starting point, and you did that when you
yeah,
adopted whole food plant-based. So do you feel like things are different this time? Like you have
yes.
lost Stephanie, it's amazing, what,
It's
165
yeah, it's a little over
pounds now.
165 pounds. I was looking back. We were cleaning out the garage, getting everything finally organized now that we've had remodeled our
Mhm.
basement. And I was looking at it and I was like, it said one number, and I thought that was my top number. No, it was like 13 pounds more. It was a doctor appointment
Wow.
visit. And I'm like, well, I
Yeah.
must have been that at some point.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's about 160, a little over 165 pounds. Plant based has obviously been a majority of it. And
Mhm.
so, the first year I went plant based, I kind of maintained my weight after the first year. I was eating a little bit higher of the fat foods. And then
Mhm.
I watched Chef AJ's weight loss summit thing. And I decided to focus to get that last weight and more weight I still want to lose off. And so the last 45 pounds is more focusing on eating a little bit the lower fat plant based foods. And I was
Right.
using nuts in all of my dressings, but I just had to learn how to kind of dial it down a little.
Mhm.
Um,
So are you limiting your portions, doing
no, I
portion
don't limit
control,
my
counting,
portions. No,
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 counting
I just
calories,
no,
counting
I don't ever watch my
no.
calories. I more just kind of focus on maybe not so nut heavy of dishes
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
where I was in
Right.
the very beginning to nut heavy and more avocados. And now I just kind of focus more on loading up my plate with lots and lots of green vegetables and then a little
Mhm.
bit of my starches and stuff. So yeah. And I feel like I eat more. I feel like I eat
Yes,
more.
it's very common.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have the
It seems
same thing,
counterintuitive.
right?
Eat more, lose weight.
Eat
Yeah.
more, lose weight. And that's what
Yeah.
happens with this because the plant foods are the most nutrient
Yes,
dense,
exactly.
low calorie foods,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Just by nature. So you can eat more of these foods and still lose weight. And do you feel deprived? Do you find yourself
No,
feeling like,
never.
oh,
I never do.
never.
No, no.
Right. And so it's unbelievable how, when you can wrap your mind around these things, that it doesn't have to be a miserable journey. And when you learn to love the lifestyle, which you did, I love your story because you talk about how you made these changes over time. And as you learned, you implemented what you learned. And before long, here you are. You're feeling vibrant. You're feeling good. What are your favorite changes that you got?
My favorite changes, more energy is actually normally I tend to talk a lot in my own family,
Yeah.
maybe not out in public, but I was telling my mom, I said, "Do you notice I'm like got a little bit more pep in my step?" She's like, "Yeah." I said, "I'm definitely sure it's the plant-based lifestyle." Because
Yeah.
before I was a little bit more tired. I mean, I was carrying around a lot extra weight. I mean, I
Mhm.
even look back thinking, how did I do that when I still have weight to lose? And sometimes it's still hard to moving and
Mhm.
stuff. But it's yeah, I started working out more and doing that kind of stuff, just going up to the barn and feeling that I can just keep doing more things
Mhm.
just lifting rocks, whatever it is that we do that is not something I would have ever been able to do, and
Yeah.
telling my doctor that and telling my whoever is listening to me in my own medical world. It is
Yeah.
amazing to be able to tell my doctor, it's like, oh my gosh, that's awesome that you did that, and just being able
Right.
to share that how good I feel, and this knowing when they see me they can tell that.
Right. Oh, yeah. It's such an amazing testimonial to
But do
so
they
many
hear
people.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do the doctors do they hear?
That's a
Because
good
sometimes
question.
patients may say that, and it's just like, "No, that's
Yeah.
impossible. Quit doing that. Do this other
yeah,
thing."
We've had it
But
happen so many
we've
times to our
heard so many
clients. They'll go
stories.
to the doctors and, "What are you doing?" The doctors will ask, "What are you doing?" "Oh,
yeah,
I'm eating plant-based."
Oh, you don't need
But
to
what
do
else
that.
are you doing?
Quit
Like,
doing that.
yeah.
there's no way. And then quit doing it.
Yeah.
Like, people will tell them, "You
Don't.
don't need to do that. Quit doing that," even
Yeah,
though they're reversing their diabetes, even though all these things are genetic
Losing
yeah,
weight,
and
pain going
chronic. It's
away.
the weight's coming off. They have more
Yeah.
energy. They
yeah,
feel better. it's so sad to us to see
Yeah.
that happen. So, but you're going in there and you're able to share with your
Yeah.
doctors, hey, this is happening. And yes, it was the food. I mean, that was a huge part of it. I know that wasn't all of it, but that was
Right.
a big part of your
Yeah.
journey. I feel like a lot of times that's the foundational step
Yeah.
too.
Well, and
Yeah. And
seeing the lab work, I think is there's just no question when you can see labs
mhm.
when she's like,
Absolutely.
especially when she's telling my son, I've never seen cholesterol so good. I'm like, okay, you know,
Right? Yeah, it just
yeah,
naturally happens with these
yeah,
foods.
yeah,
Oh, wow. Okay, so now what are you doing to maintain? Okay, let's pretend it's a busy day, a crazy day. Like yesterday you told me you had all kind of errands to run
yeah,
and you came home and I'm sure you were tired. Moms totally get that,
yeah.
especially working moms like you, right? So when we're busy all day long, what do you come in and just what are your go-to meals that you think I can just throw that together really quick? If you haven't done any meal planning that
Yeah.
week, what are your go-tos?
So I always usually have, I guess it's not meal planning, but I usually always have some salad or
Mhm,
a bunch of greens and a bunch of whatever I love to throw together that is already sitting in the refrigerator that I prepped earlier in the week. So that might
mhm,
make it a little easier when I do that. Instapot is the big one for us. We love to have
mhm.
cooking beans.
Oh,
So we can
absolutely.
throw that in there. My husband was actually still home and my mom was. So I actually asked them to just throw it in there before I got home yesterday. The kids might stop if we're out at a grocery store and pick up a
Mhm.
sandwich that is vegan. I usually don't do
Right,
that because I'm not really a fan. And I also have certain more goals that I want to kind of reach. So
right.
I'll be a little bit more mindful of that. I did pick up a banana when I was in the store
Mhm.
and then ate lunch before I left. So that was a huge thing is kind of just being mindful of what I need to eat before I leave. But also, yeah, salads are a huge go-to one. I usually always have a
Mhm.
salad dressing made together, oil-free, of course. And then, yeah,
What's your favorite salad dressing oil-free that you like to
um,
use?
I do like the tahini. I'm trying not to do that one, but
Mhm.
anything with there's a date one.
Tahini is great.
It is. I
Yeah.
love it, and anything
Mhm,
I like to sweeten it with dates. Dates
mhm.
are a huge thing. I like to put the dates in there.
So you take
Um,
tahini, which is sesame seed butter
yeah,
for those who don't know,
yeah,
and then it's pre-ground kind of like a peanut butter and you can buy it in jars. Just make sure you don't get one with added oils or
right,
added
right.
salt or things like that. So you take your tahini, you put it in your blender. Do you add a little oil to thin it out? I mean, a little
No,
oil.
no,
No, of
we
course
don't
you
have.
don't add oil.
Yeah,
Do you add water to thin
yeah,
it
yeah.
out?
So, what? Yeah,
Okay.
no, I'll add a little sweetener like the dates, or I buy date syrup sometimes just because I can't
Right.
handle tahini right on its own like I
Yeah.
can peanut butter.
Right.
Yeah. So then that, and then yeah, a lemon in there, some garlic.
Yes.
I'm trying to think what else I put in there. I might put
That is
some
Lemon would be
delicious.
rice
good.
wine vinegar. Right,
Mhm.
rice wine vinegar in there.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Yeah,
That
it's really
sounds
good.
so good. So that's one of your favorites. So
Yeah.
on your salad, are you eating a typical side salad like what you would get at a restaurant? Like lettuce, tomato,
Maybe a
maybe a
slice
little
of
carrot,
cucumber.
Yeah.
slice of cucumber or grated carrot? Or how do you build your salads
Yeah.
now?
So my major thing that I love to do is power bowls, but power bowls to me
Mhm.
are more of how I align them and add to them. But I kind of add my salad and power bowl together.
Yep.
Is I go with everything. I love shopping at Trader Joe's and getting cucumbers, shredded carrots, the little baby corn, spinach, kale. Yeah, I go all in with everything. Whereas my
Mhm.
husband will be like, I'm just good with the lettuce. I'm
Mhm.
like, well, here's mine piled with bell peppers, all your kind of peppers. And I just add, to me, the colors of the food make me happy. And that's what
Yes.
I want. I want foods that nourish. Now I'm on the journey of foods that nourish my body. And that's what I
I
think I've
love
come to the
that.
understanding of plant based is I look at food if this is going to nourish my body or if it's not going to get me where my goals are or to
Right.
nourish my body is where I'm looking at it now. So I see all of these wonderful colors and I want to add as many as I can. And I love the crunch of the food.
Mhm.
I'm probably a crunchy eater, so that's what I love about that.
Yes. Yes, we're big crunchy
Yeah,
eaters. We love
Oh,
that too.
yeah.
So, do you replicate the crunch on your salad? I'm gonna go back to that. I'm thinking about did you used to eat croutons or nuts or
no.
things or
And
no,
I'll
not
add
really
that
on your
sometimes,
salad?
but not as much as I'm trying to lose the last few pounds. So I probably won't add as many nuts.
Mhm.
But yes, I love pumpkin seeds would be awesome on
Mhm.
there. Flax seeds or something like that are great on them.
Right.
And hummus is another one I love. I never liked hummus until I started
So
making it myself.
so
And
good.
I'm sitting in the Trader Joe's checkout, and the guy's like, "You're making hummus." I'm like, "How did you know?" He's like, "I can tell from your ingredients."
I love that. Oh, it's so good. Okay, so what do you like to eat with your hummus?
Usually I put it on a salad, or I will put
Mhm.
it into a little a sandwich. I
Yes.
love
Oh, love that.
Oh yeah.
a whole wheat bread sandwich, a wrap. I like they have a pita that's really good at Trader Joe's. It's a whole
Mhm.
wheat pita that I will use. I'm still working on how to make bread, so
Mhm.
once I get that down, I'd love to be able to make my own. But
Oh,
right
that
now,
sounds amazing. All right, I'm gonna go back to the salad one
yeah.
more time. What do you add to make it stick to your ribs? Do you have any favorite ingredients? Like, do you do beans? Do you do potatoes? Anything like that that makes it a little bit more hearty? Because
Yeah.
I know sometimes people are tempted to make salads like we would typically make a side salad. And so, are
No,
there
I add
any?
a bunch of stuff. No, so my everyday I love my new favorite is Japanese sweet potatoes. So I
For
usually make
Oh
those
them,
yeah.
every day, and those so I will get them warm and cook them, and you might roast them or however you choose to cook them.
right?
And then I put them in the freezer really quick to cool them down because I'm not a fan of
Mhm.
warm things on my
Hot,
cold salad.
yeah.
And so I would cool them down just for a second and then put them in there. And that's probably my favorite. And actually cold brown rice from the night before.
Mm.
So if we cooked it the night before and then had it in the refrigerator, I put it on there. And I know that's strange, but I love it.
No, I love
No, not at all.
that.
I don't think we've ever done rice on salad.
We have, it's been a long time. We'll do whole grain pasta sometimes, but we switch
Yeah,
Yeah, I've done that.
portions.
Yeah.
Like, did you
that would be
switch the
good.
proportions to some for weight loss? I know that we lost over 70 pounds
Oh, that's
together,
awesome.
and that wasn't really our goal either.
Yeah.
Like, it really wasn't one of your main goals. You just wanted to feel good,
Right.
you wanted to be healthy. But yeah, so where
Yeah,
was
and
I
I
going
did
with that,
for right
Stephanie?
now is before on the pastas, we were kind of
Yeah,
already proportioning them out when we were doing clean eating because that was the sad part about the clean eating is we weren't eating enough of the good foods and we were
right.
making meat the staple of our dish when that's
Yes.
obviously never in 3 years I've not had any animal products, but it's interesting how we were portioning out our good starchy carbs, which were good for us, the potatoes, the corn, the peas, all
Right.
that. We were proportioning that years ago when we were doing clean eating. We were missing out, and maybe that's why we weren't feeling full and why we were not getting where we were going.
You
Um,
talk about that a lot. You really need those carbs to fuel
yeah,
you
Oh
well and to
yeah.
make you feel
I mean, really,
satisfied.
about 70% of your energy should be from carbohydrates.
yes,
I
Mhm.
mean, your
yes,
body has to run on them, but the fiber, because animal products have no fiber.
right,
So when you have that fiber, it really fills you up and makes you feel
absolutely,
satisfied.
Yeah, it
absolutely,
was nothing for us, Stephanie, to go into Burger King, have a biggie meal, and then look at each other and go, "Yeah, want another?" Like we were
exactly,
still
We're still hungry.
hungry,
yeah,
and it was a real thing because the craveability experts had put the trifecta of
Uh,
drooling
sh-
into the food.
yeah,
So it's like the
absolutely,
sugar, oil,
sugar, the
salt.
oil, the salt, right? And then our bodies are crying out because we ate an amount of food, but it's so refined and not having the fiber, we were not full.
yeah,
And on top of that, our bodies still needed those nutrients that we
yeah.
just
Yeah.
weren't getting.
I actually just went out and bought a larger bowl so I can put my salads and whatever. The other day it was all it was half broccoli and I love putting any kind of spice on anything. And then
Right.
the other half was sweet potatoes. And literally, I mean, most of my friends or anybody will look at me and go, "Oh my gosh, that's a little high carb." Like, no. I lose weight on potatoes and listen to the starch solution, everything. Absolutely
Yes.
potatoes
Absolutely.
all the
Oh,
way.
we're
Absolutely.
potato fans. We love potatoes. Okay, so what are you putting on your potato? We talked about what we put potatoes in. We put
Yeah.
them in our salads. We put
Yeah.
them in our bowls. You talked about
Yeah.
bowls. You are good with bowls. I have
Yeah. I do
seen
like
you do
bowls.
some yummy bowls.
I think it
So,
allows you to get the variety of food, right? And all your favorite foods
yes.
without going, "Oh, I can't have that." 'Cause or I guess I should say, couldn't have that. You could say, "Well, I choose out of that one, but then I don't have enough
Right.
room on my plate for that." So I kind of just add it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what do you put on your potato? Like, do you
Yeah.
ever use a potato as the base for your bowl? We do that sometimes.
Yeah. It all depends on if I got, so sometimes the Japanese potatoes come in a little, the sweet potatoes come in a little smaller. So I have to do a
Mhm.
few. But the other
Right.
day I had a big, huge sweet potato from Costco. So that one obviously filled up the bowl a little bit more. And that was delicious. And I
Mhm.
love just spices. So I will do onion powder,
Mhm.
garlic powder. My huge new favorite one is smoked paprika.
Yes.
That's one of
It's
my
a
favorite.
wonderful one for replacing the smoky flavors in meats. So
Oh, that's
whenever
a
you're
good one.
eating something that you had meat in before that was real smoky, I love adding
Yeah.
that too.
And
Yeah.
then basil. Basil, I have the sweet
Mhm.
basil that I just kind of add to. So you
Yum.
have spices, whatever spices you like, and those are just the ones
Mhm.
I happen to like.
I
Um,
love that
yeah,
too. Okay, so we're talking about adding flavor. What are
yeah.
some of your other tips for adding more flavor to bring that delicious taste out in your foods?
I obviously we instead well, I would try to make our own broth, right? But if not, if we
Mhm,
buy it at store, it's an oil-free broth. And
mhm,
using the broth with has all the flavors in it is one great way that we do.
mhm.
Spices, we're just huge spices. Again, with my husband being from Puerto Rico, if there's he's not he'll do the spicy, but it's just more the spices to bring out the flavors. So we
Right,
just actually reorganized our whole entire spice drawer to make sure that we're using a lot of different variety of spices. I'm a huge cumin,
mhm,
coriander kind of spice, whereas he might like the oregano or the basil. Absolutely. So
right.
we do dried spices a lot.
They're really great, and it sounded like you have a basil plant as well.
Not yet. No,
Not yet?
working on that. So we just got everything. We just bought our tunnel garden. So
Yeah.
getting that
Oh,
to
fun.
start.
I wanna see pictures. Are you gonna
Yeah.
put pictures on
Yeah.
Instagram?
I will do all of that. It's in a box right now, but yes, absolutely.
Oh, I cannot wait. I also wanna see a picture of your new big bowl filled with
Yes.
something
Yes.
delicious, like
Yeah.
holding up your bowl. "Look, here's how big
Yes.
it is."
Yeah.
Because it's hard for people to wrap their mind around, how can I eat that much food and still lose and then ultimately maintain my
Yeah.
weight? We have
Absolutely.
a member that we had worked with, and she had reached a point and she said, now I've got to keep the weight on, because she really did keep losing. And she felt like, okay, now I've
Mhm.
got to start. So that's a whole different thing where
Yeah.
she's looking at but it's so individual.
Yes.
This
Absolutely.
way of living is so individual. So there are different things that each person needs to look at. But at the same time, there are so many things and so many methods that work for the majority of people to reverse diabetes, not just
Yeah.
prevent it, but type 2, to
Yeah.
reverse type 2
Yeah.
diabetes, to reverse just weight loss issues that you've had for so long in a way that you actually enjoy. And it sounds like you really are
Mhm.
enjoying the way that you're living
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing was is the mindset was a huge part of me
Yes.
going on this journey because even though I had done the weight loss before, obviously it was not. Now I know this is a sustainable life. I've done this for 3 years now. I've kept the weight off. I continue to go. I'd like to lose maybe 3 pounds. I'm not sure. It's wherever I kind of feel comfortable at. I know finally when I got out of the obese category from doing the BMI, that was a huge excitement for me.
Wow.
Um,
Oh, I can't
and that was just
imagine.
huge because
Yeah.
that was a focus so much of my doctor appointments. This is where you're at,
Mhm,
but I know everybody is different and everybody
mhm,
is different. And so I was more focused on now just kind of nourishing my body, but
mhm.
also being that role model for the kids. Cause I know my
Oh, yeah.
children still struggle with maybe eating the exact way I do, where I'm watching, exact amount of foods on my salads or something like that and
Right.
not eating out or something. But yeah, we're all 100% a whole food plant-based family. And that's what makes it eat the best for us.
That is
Yeah.
awesome. It's so nice to have that encouragement. And like I said, that's not something that all people have, but you can find support. There is someone who's been on this journey before. Stephanie is a great person to connect with. Look at Clean Food Mama on Instagram. She is
Yeah.
you're such an amazing encouragement, Stephanie, to all those who know you.
Thank
Your
you.
journey has been spectacular. I know that you mentioned mindset here.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, what do you think were the biggest mindset shifts? Like, I know a lot of people think about protein, like, where am I going to get my protein or
Mm.
my
Yeah.
calcium? What are some of those things that you think a lot of people believe that just aren't true, that myths that maybe you
Yeah.
busted that now allowed you to move forward?
Well, and I think part of the all or nothing kind of thinking was is I immersed myself and went to the
Mhm.
T. Colin Campbell's nutrition studies and immersed
Yes.
myself in learning more about plant based and documentaries. And I think it was just more the awareness.
Hmm.
Once I knew, I couldn't unknow. And
Hmm.
I think that was the big thing was just learning more and then knowing how I feel and
Hmm.
knowing that the labs were looking good and I was doing good and I was getting where I want. And yeah, even when my doctor goes, well, you got to make sure you get your protein. I'm like, I know I get a lot of beans, and so I know that those are one of the highest and the best the sources of foods comes from the whole foods, and I
Yes,
can get every nutrient that I
absolutely.
need. And
Yes.
living proof of it 3 years later that feeling good and we're doing good, and the outside is feeling as good as the inside is now getting, and so that's a huge thing for me too.
Oh, sister, that is what it is all about. I mean, you've
Yeah,
hit the nail on the head right there. It is all about feeling great every day, having the energy to do the things that you want to do. And I
yes,
feel like for so long, that was us just getting up and like barely
Oh,
surviving the
yeah.
day. And Jared didn't even realize he hurt during the day. He had aches and pains.
yeah,
And I
Yeah.
remember we started eating whole food plant based, and he looked at me one day and he said, my
It was
shoulder,
probably
my
about a
shoulder's
couple
not
months
hurting anymore.
after, and it wasn't debilitating, but it was there, and it lasted. I seem to recall a couple years. like
Yeah.
in the shoulder, sides of the hips. And I just remember one day waking up about 2 months into going all in, where I thought, wait a minute, my shoulders aren't bothering me anymore.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
That's
awesome what
awesome.
all can happen and what can change. And then you walk this journey and you see other people start to
Yeah.
implement just what they're learning just by watching, and they get curious. Maybe you
Yes.
think, some of our listeners might be thinking, well, that's great. Stephanie's family was all on board. But the thing is, and you've probably seen this too with
Mhm.
clients that you've worked with, where the people in your household, when you start doing this, they get curious.
Yeah.
They want to taste it. And then they're going, hey, that's not so bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and then pretty soon they're like, hey, can I have some of that? And next thing you know, it's, can we have that again for another meal? And before long, things can start to change in dramatic ways, even if you've gone all in.
Yeah.
Just say, like, you have a husband who's just trying stuff. Before long, he's 25% plant based, and then he's
Yeah.
30%. And it's just such fun to watch,
Mhm.
because this is so much about quality of life and seeing that, not just longer years. I mean, we know people who live plant based
Yeah.
live longer,
Yeah.
but they
Yeah.
also live better lives. You've got that quality of life where you actually feel like doing all the things that you want to
Absolutely.
do. And I
Absolutely.
feel
And
like
I think
that's
that, especially my mom,
huge.
when she was younger, had polio. And so I know she's dealt her whole life with hip pain. And
Yeah.
it's gotten a lot better going plant based. I realize it can't completely solve something for the whole entire lifetime, possibly, but
Right.
everything is so much better. Getting
But if
up,
it's
getting,
better,
Huge.
I
yeah,
mean, that's a huge
yeah,
win.
absolutely
Yeah,
huge.
and no side effects, at least no bad ones,
Exactly.
right?
No, I have, yeah, no, the only side effect is that we want to share it more.
Yes, absolutely. I know your heart is to help so many
Yeah,
people, and what you're posting is incredible online.
thank you.
And where can people find out more about you? Where's the place that you would like for them to come and connect with you?
Yeah, so on Instagram at Clean Food Mama, that's kind of where I
Okay.
share everything. And if not, then inside there's a bio that you can go ahead and link to everything I have. But on Instagram, absolutely Clean Food Mama.
That sounds great. Thank you so
Yes,
much,
thank you
Stephanie,
so
for
much.
being here. I want all of our listeners to go right now and follow Stephanie on Instagram. She's such an inspiration. You're going to learn a lot, and just continuing on her journey as she goes. We look forward to seeing what all's going to happen for you in the future, Stephanie. And we're so thankful to be friends and to have
Yes,
you today to share with
yes,
our listeners all about your journey. Thank you so
thank
much for
you.
coming on. We
Thank you. I'm
really
so glad to
appreciate it.
connect with you guys. Thank you.
Yes, and we're looking forward to seeing how everything goes in the future. I know it's going to be amazing.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so
All right.
much. Thank you.